Hey, everybody, welcome back to the Ohio Small Business Spotlight, where every single week we do our very best to introduce you to small businesses in our community because we know, just like you do, that as the small business goes, so do the main streets of our hometowns. Greg, tell everyone who we got on the show this week.
Man, my brother, really good friend of mine. This dude and I have gotten tight here lately, and the business that he's going to talk about, well, he wears many hats, and we'll get into all that right there. I've been to several of his training opportunities. The one that I love the most, I'm sure he'll want to talk about first, and that's real world trauma, empowering people, as we were talking about before we get started. That's what Jonathan Willis does. John, man, we love having you here today, brother.
Thank you, my friend. Appreciate being with you.
What I love about the work that you do, Train with Willis, is really designed about empowering and helping people become self-reliant. So one of the questions, one of the questions that we love to jump into is why this field? How did it start? Give us the genesis behind starting a business that's all about empowering and helping become more and more self-reliant.
Well, the genesis of this work for me really comes from my work on the streets as a firefighter paramedic. And kind of simultaneous with that, I was a recreational sports competition firearms enthusiast. And these things kind of came up simultaneously. But in my professional career as a firefighter paramedic, I kind of came up in both worlds as a young man after my career in the military. And I saw a need mostly and firstly in the world of trauma medicine and emergency response. And that came through and became real world trauma, the class that I'm most known for today. And that is a class that is an all encompassing, all hazards class, making people understand how to respond to the trauma medical hazards and trauma medical emergencies of the day. So that's really my background of work. And through that class has evolved over the last, almost 14 years now. It has progressed greatly into what it is today. I'm actually teaching that class in Xenia on Saturday, what will be December 16th for those watching. That class has progressed greatly, and that was kind of my entry into the firearms training community. And then I evolved my skill set to be able to train in other facets and other disciplines of that world of work. And so I am now an instructor in multiple disciplines in that community, professionally speaking, around the country. So that's kind of the genesis of my world of work in this realm. But real world trauma is really it is my passion, because I'm still, even though I'm not on the streets anymore as a professional firefighter paramedic, after which I spent 20 years doing that. That is my passion. That is what I know. Even aside from the firearms world and that training world, that is what I know to be the true empowerment of every citizen, whether they be a firearms type person or even a person who is not into that at all. Real world trauma is the kind of thing that empowers every person, no matter what they believe in or what they feel an interest in. That is where I'm at, and I get to enjoy that today. So, yeah.
Well, one of the things, John, that I know, having been through several of your classes, and one of the things that we find, Tony and I find, in a common thread when we discuss with business owners, people that do things at an excellent level. There's a lot of business owners that out there that struggle. They think that just accomplishing the mission getting the job done is sufficient. And those that excel and provide a level of excellence, like your real world trauma, nobody could go through that class right there and not feel that they learned some powerful skills. Has Do you think your excellence has kind of evolved with the expertise that you figured out how to get it into the thing, or is that something that you said baseline? Boy, when we do this right here, because it really, the end product is an excellent product, and everybody would agree with that.
That's a really good question. Excellence in delivery and excellence in whatever you do really comes, it comes over time, and it's such an important thing to focus on and strive for. And for me, in that facet of what it is I do in that realm of business, it was part of the goal in the beginning, but it's also part of the ongoing assessment of what it is I do. So the class as it is now, that part of my programming, be it and it could be real world trauma, it could be any facet of the firearms community work that I do, be it long gun stuff or short gun, whatever, any of that part of the world of work that I do, but real world trauma being the focus of my my known work. It being an excellent body of work, and me knowing it, and the people who've received it knowing it to be an excellent body of work, that can't be accepted. You have to recognize it as being a living, breathing, ever-evolving thing that can be improved. If you see an opportunity of improvement or an opportunity to find excellence where there's something that can be better than a part of it that was in it, then you have to sacrifice something that was in it and make it better. So it's been, for the last 14 years I've been doing it, it's been an evolving thing. So someone who took the class 5 years ago or 8 years ago, if they took it now, it's not even remotely similar to what it was. So it's an ever evolving body of work. And I'm constantly taking criticism or participating in self-criticism and self-evaluation. My business partner, Scott, Greg, you're a great friend of his, and, he will film parts of it or he's taken it, a half dozen times, and he will give me evaluations of it and things like that. And I'll know parts, and I will watch parts, and I'll be able to see things that I see could be improved upon, and that helps me to know what can be bettered. So that's part of my ongoing improvement process.
One of the things that I hear from a lot of service providers as business owners is, especially when you provide a service in a field that a lot of people don't feel comfortable with, right? And so people are thinking about the kind of work that you do, and this is not like something that the average person is probably putting a lot of thought process or intentionality into. No one's waking up today going, man, I really feel a little short in my real world trauma training. And so how do you take something like this and then take the average consumer and help them feel comfortable stepping into a world where they feel completely uncomfortable?
What you have to do for people who, as you just described, you have to bring it to their normal. You have to make them understand that it's part of their everyday, because people go through their lives in their bubble. They go through their lives. We all live where we live, and most of us live pretty close to one another. We all live in close proximity to one another, and in those environments, we think that, or one could easily think that, it doesn't happen here. And I spent 20 years working where we three, in close proximity to where we three live. And I saw it happen within blocks of or within feet of where we three live. And what I have to do is I have to make people understand that it happens on your front steps. It happens down the block. It happens next door to you. It happens at your house. I have to make people understand that it doesn't just happen to other people somewhere else. It happens to everyone. And that's part of the reason it's called real world trauma, is that it happens to everyone. Trauma medicine, emergency trauma and emergency medical isn't for other people. I spent 20 years of my life responding to the worst things in the world that happen to every person that we would know and love and care for. So what I try to do is make people like us and that we would know and love and care for understand that it's not just the other people. And I also try to make people understand that I've been on hundreds, if not thousands of calls, that if a couple of people would have just known or bothered to know a day or a few hours worth of training, the outcome of the event would have been totally different for a person, wherein I would have been making a transport, or my team would have been making a transport where someone would have survived and then thrived and lived a long and fruitful life, rather than we making a field termination and there being a funeral. So I try to make people understand that it's not just the other people. It doesn't have to be just just a belief that, oh well, things just happen, and it's just if 911 isn't there and the government doesn't come, then it's just meant to be, and whatever. We are all empowered with the capability to affect a positive outcome to save lives. It doesn't have to just be the government coming. It doesn't have to be me, a paramedic, or a firefighter paramedic team from the government coming to save lives. We can all learn great skills to affect a positive outcome, and someone survive. Someone who you love, or someone even you don't know or don't love, can survive and live because you did the right thing. That's what I want people to know.
Well, those two things in the class, I'll echo what you said. Those are the two things that grab your attention when you show the examples of everyday life where it happens. And then you point out that if someone, and yeah, I know there were cases that you showed where real world stuff happened and somebody was there that applied some training that they had and they were successful. So it grabs your attention right away. So one of the things a lot of business owners, so you teach a service, you teach a skill. Business owners out there that are looking for that, that's a complicated thing to market. I mean, when you start marketing that, and I know kind of some of the things that you do, and I'll let you elaborate on with, the video and everything. That's what brought you to do that? Because I have to believe that's been one of the more successful ways, the way that you communicate on social media with some of the training examples and videos. Is there any other marketing things that someone that teaches a class or teaches someone how to do a skill that could grab from that?
The real focus that someone has to come to deliver something like this, the biggest thing someone has to be able to do is establish credibility. So to do what I do in this realm and in this world of work is I'm able to establish credibility from a background of work. I have a body of work over 20 years, over 2 decades, and thousands of calls. And as unpleasant as it is to say, I've experienced a lot of people's trauma to help other people know how to do what it is they need to do to have a more positive outcome. A lot of people didn't have a positive outcome for me to be able to help other people win. A lot of people lost for me to help other people win, right? That just is science. That's part of the science behind the methods and the techniques that I teach. It just is what it is. So part of establishing credibility in teaching something like I teach or doing something like I do is having a background primarily in credibility. So there's a few people in the country doing what I do at the level that I do it, who have similar backgrounds with a known and understood credibility. So that is pretty much the most important part. And it's being able to deliver an understood credibility without going too far above an understood academic level for the normal consumer. So we're talking about a lot of science, a lot of medicine, a lot of trauma and medical terminology and things like that. So we have to be able to deliver extremely technical concepts in a digestible manner when it comes down to actual technical terms and things like that. So when it comes down to actually delivery, you have to be a really good instructor that can deliver really important technical terms to in a digestible level to the normal to the average person that you would pull off the street. So it's an interesting thing to be able to teach, and I really find it a fun thing to do as a challenge of instruction. It's one of the more enjoyable things I do as an instructor because you do have that challenge of bridging technical terms into normal things like that. So, but I see, here's the thing that I do see in this realm. So you'll see, be it in churches, in schools, in other kind of classes, you'll see people trying to teach some of this content where they took like a weekend class and all of a sudden they're teaching like Stop the Bleed classes and things like that, where they don't actually have a background of decades of work and they don't have a true background of credibility. And they can't really speak to things, then they're kind of out of their depth. So imagine, Greg, like with your background, or Tony with your background, if someone were to speak out of their terms in one of your fields of expertise, you would know it within seconds, right? And I see this kind of happening in the same thing with medical and trauma education. So staying within your depth of credibility is a really important way, a really important thing too. So.
You know, one of the things that's interesting is that you've made a tough transition from being decades in the fire service where you're getting a regular paycheck, you've got a regular schedule, you're kind of like, you know, you're 2 on, 1 off, or however they did it, right? Like it's obviously no one understands a firefighter schedule ever. That's kind of I think partly by design with the firefighters I know, paramedics, that sort of thing. And then you made the transition to owning your own business. If you could go back in time and give yourself one piece of advice, but the first day of Train with Willis and the day it was opened, what would you tell yourself about owning your own business?
Oh man. So the only reason that I'm able to do what I'm able to do is because of Willis and Rife, my real estate company that I run with Scott Rife. So I started Willis and Rife with Scott Rife back in 2012, and we had started doing some things in investment real estate before that. So Train with Willis spun out of and is only because of all of that. So I'd been a firefighter since 1998, and this is only because of all of that. And what it is really is what I would say to your question, Tony, is recognize your gifts. Recognize your gifts and recognize what you are truly skilled at that other people may not be. And if you have these gifts, it is your responsibility to own those gifts. You've been blessed with what you've been blessed with. And it took a long time for me to recognize, and I'm still recognizing, don't get me wrong, I'm still coming to grips with a lot of the things that, for whatever reason, I am talented to do. And this is an ongoing thing for me. The things that I'm doing in the firearms training community has kind of taken a precipitous rise. The real world trauma training thing, this is developed quite rapidly. And I was one of the last to really understand it. So I've been doing this kind of passively for a lot of years. And what I truly needed to start to do was understand that I had a gift. I'd been blessed, and it was my responsibility to pass these things that I understood how to do. These were all in my head. The things that I'm able to do in seconds, when seconds count in a life or death situation, it became apparent that I have a gift of delivery to other people. I'm able to help other people understand how to do skill sets in life or death situations. So I've been gifted with a skill set for instruction. I've been gifted with a skill set for performance in life or death situations. So that's a blessing that I need to work with.
Boy, I tell you, John, if I just roll back through this 21, 22 minutes that we've talked about excellence. We've talked about your passion and love doing what you're doing. We're talking about the credibility that you have because of the experience that you have. It's no wonder that real world trauma has become such a desired class around the country. I know every time I'm talking to you, you're traveling somewhere to teach it, and you're unashamed, you're unapologetic in how you are with your friends about taking it, and it was a great deal. One thing right here before we hang up, tell me something that's went wrong. Everything really seems to have flowed really nice for Jonathan Willis from the start of Willis and Rife and into that and these things that spun off. Business owners might have a hard time relating to that. They look and say, man, everything's just went right for John. What's something you had to overcome that, just snuck up on you, jumped out at you that you did not expect? Teach somebody something here, Willis.
I think the hardest thing for me, and Greg, you know this about me. You know this about me probably about the second. You're about probably number 2 in my life of people who know this about me, and my passion for the things that I do is extreme, and I have a difficulty understanding the commitment level of others, right? So when I know to the core of my being that I put something in front of another person, that, and let's talk about like real world trauma, right? Let's talk about we'll keep it at real world trauma so that I can illustrate the point. I know to the core of my being that the things in real world trauma will be the difference in someone living or dying, right? I know that if I have someone in my class for 8 hours of one day of their life, they will have the capability to make someone live or die that they care about. So I have a difficulty. It's been really it's been really troublesome for me to like when I have 20 open spots in the class and I sell and 16 people show up, that bothers me. It bothers me deeply and personally when 4 people didn't show up for that class of 20. I find that deeply offensive, that 4 people didn't care enough about the people that they loved or the people in their lives to show up. Because, and it's not, and don't get me wrong, it's not about the class seat. It's not about selling 4 spots in the class. I could care less. I could not care less about selling 4 more seats in a class. Don't think that's the point. The point of that is that when I make available 20 spots for 20 people to be empowered to possibly make 20 or 200 people in their lives survive an event that they would otherwise die from, and 4 people don't show up, that deeply offends me. And that's been a failure point for me, where I'm like, I'm like mad about that. And like I do everything in my life insurance through you. And like I would only, that would just be like, if I were to do anything otherwise, I would be like offended. But that's just because, like,
you do a good job showing restraint, John. Give yourself a little bit of credit.
Well, that's just how I am, and that's a failure for me, and I know it. Like I know that's a thing. That's a weakness for me. That's like a thing for me that I don't yet know really how to really process. Because I'm not a business guy. My whole life is about business. Like I built with Scott, Willis, and Rife. My whole life now is business. But I still am kind of like, to the core of my being, I'll tell Scott, I'll tell any of you guys, like, I'm not a business guy. I'm just a guy that does the things that I do sincerely and honestly, and I'll just tell you about what it is that I do. And you're going to want to do what I do, because I do what I do honestly, and I deliver what I do honestly. And you're going to be down with it, because it's just a good thing to do, and that's how I do it. So, those are my failure points. That's really my biggest weakness.
Say failure, I say passion. We absolutely love it.
Yeah.
Jonathan, we're so thankful that you took the time today to be on the podcast, to be on the show. Without small business owners like you, this community would not be the same. So let me just say thank you on behalf of business owners everywhere. Thank you for being a part of our community. Thank you for saving lives through your invaluable training. Let me just encourage everyone, if you're listening now, you can learn more by going to trainwithwillis.com. His schedule's up there, his ways to get in contact with him up there, everything you need to know about all of his services. Until next time, on behalf of Greg, we thank you for being a part of our community, and thank you to all the business owners out there, because you make the main streets of America work. We thank you, and we look forward to seeing you guys next week.
Go Navy.